I am Manjiri Gokhale. I am a clinical psychologist. And today I am going to talk about psychometric assessment. The word psychometric is coined from two Greek words, psycho, which means mind, and metri, which means measurement. So, this is a field which is concerned with psychological measurement. A psychometric test is any activity or assessment that objectively evaluates a person's abilities, skills, knowledge, aptitude, clinical constructs, mental states, behavior, and so on and so forth. So, in short, this is a very objective and unbiased procedure to measure behavior, mental states, aptitude, and also to predict future performance. So, how are psychometric tests different from the other tests? Now, generally, whenever a doctor asks us to do any test, we usually think of some machines. It might be an X-ray machine or some scanning machine, or we think that we would be expected to give a blood sample. So, all these are medical tests. Or else we immediately think of it as some tests which are conducted in schools, colleges, or for entrance exams. However, psychometric tests are different from all these. Most of them are paper pencil tests. They would ask you to respond in yes or no, or they would ask you to respond to some stimulus. So it might be pictures, or they might ask you to do some activities like assembling blocks or doing some task. Another difference is that a psychometric test does not require you to prepare or study for it, which is usually the case with the tests we give in schools and colleges. Also, most psychometric tests, which are very robust and widely used, have inbuilt tools to detect if a person is trying to fake bad, if a person has not really read the items and is randomly responding. So, in that way, also, these tests are reliable because a lot of time people think that what if I give fake answers, or what if I just don't read it. So be assured that all the good psychometric tests are the ones which have this inbuilt lie detector, you could say. Now let us try to understand what are these psychometric tests used for. I will just take you through the various fields and areas in which these are used. One of the very important uses is for screening. In fact, the first psychometric test, which was developed in the early 20th century, which was known as the Simon-Binet test, later on known as the Stanford-Binet test, was an intelligence test, and it was developed for the purpose of screening in France. The purpose was to detect children in school who would require remedial education. So this is one way in which a screening tool is useful. A screening tool might be necessary in other areas, maybe for a job which requires a particular skill set. Maybe you want to detect children or adolescents who require some special inputs. So that is one field in which psychometric tests are used, that is screening. Another field in which they are very useful and very widely used is in the field of recruitment. If you would go to the HR department of any company, all of them rely on these psychometric tests. Now, what they do is provide an unbiased and objective way of assessing candidates, and in that you are able to compare candidates on the basis of their skill, on the basis of their ability, or whichever construct that the company is looking for. In the clinical setting, psychometric tests are very useful for diagnosis. So, for example, in children, they are used to detect the presence of conditions like autism, dyslexia, to detect mental retardation. In adults, if we want to diagnose what is the disorder this person is having, so it might be a mood disorder, an anxiety disorder, a psychotic disorder. In the elderly population, if there is onset of dementia, these tools are very useful in the early detection. This is the diagnosis part that helps the psychiatrists in making their line of treatment very specific. They are also very useful for therapists to tailor make their therapeutic approach, to make sure that the counseling inputs that you are giving to your client are the ones that are best suited to him. because some of these tests give you very important pointers in terms of this person's personality traits, or which are the red flags, or what are the things that the person might not have openly said, but these tests have detected them. So in the clinical setting, for both diagnosis as well as for therapy, these psychometric tests are very useful. Then we come to other fields like sports. So obviously in sports, it is your physical ability, your stamina, your endurance, your skill at that particular sport which matters the most. However, at a certain level, when you reach the elite club in the sport or whichever field you are in, it is a lot of these psychological traits like your competitiveness, your aggressiveness, your ability to handle pressure, how do you perform in the face of adversity. All these psychological constructs matter a lot, and I think those are the ones that make a difference. So, say a player like Roger Federer, who is now quite old for his sport but still is quite at the top of his game, I'm pretty sure that he must be having a very solid psychological makeup. And in the field of sports, this is where psychometric assessment comes in handy. Also, areas like military, they are extensively used for screening candidates to measure their intelligence, their knowledge, as well as their emotional state, as well as their personality makeup. Because again, in these situations where you are under a lot of pressure, you might be expected to make like split second decisions. It is here that your psychological well being, your emotional state is very crucial. And if the organization knows about this well in advance, they can make more sound judgments about which candidates to take for what kind of positions. Another area where psychometric testing is very useful but rarely used is the area of checking compatibility between partners. Now, in our Indian culture, we have this procedure of matching the kundalis of the prospective bride and groom, and that is a way to see, to predict whether these two are going to get along, which is fine. However, in today's age, we also have this very objective and scientific manner of assessing whether two people are compatible or no. So, why not make use of it? So, when we are assessing compatibility between partners, we usually take help of personality tests. Now, these tests tell you about the different traits that each person has, and no two people are alike. And there is nothing like the best personality or the ideal personality. But when we are talking about partners, what we are looking at is like a good fit. So, it is possible that both the people have different personality dynamics. However, if they are such that they complement each other, so the attributes of one person is going to help the other person overcome his or her flaws or his or her drawbacks, and vice versa, then the chances of this relationship becoming a success are a lot more. On the other hand, if you see red flags where both of them have certain traits which make it very obvious that this relationship could be on the rocks, or it can lead to a lot of disharmony, then it alerts you well in advance. So, it is compatibility between partners which can be assessed through psychometric tests. Another area is the field of education and choosing your career and vocation. Most of us are very familiar with the term aptitude testing, and a lot of children go through aptitude tests after their 10th or 12th standard. And this step is taken to help them decide which career or which path to take. Now, what is typically done in aptitude testing is that it is an attempt to understand a child's ability, his innate skills, his personality, his intelligence, his interest areas. And what we do is we try to bring all these things together and offer the child, offer the client the best possible scenario. So, let me give you an example. There might be two children who have an innate sense of music. Musical ability is really good in both these children. However, we notice that their personality style is very different. Someone is very outgoing, is open to new experiences, likes being in the company of people. And there is another one who is more of a loner, who prefers his or her own company. He's not comfortable with a lot of people and with a lot of attention. Now, does that mean just because they have the musical ability and both of them might have learned music, does that mean that they should become performing artists? That is not the case. So, in the example that I gave you, maybe the former one, who is an extroverted person, who is very comfortable with all the public attention and in fact might like those things, would be good as a performing artist. However, another child who has similar ability but a different personality might be better behind the scenes, maybe as a music composer or as a sound designer, as a sound engineer. And this is where psychometric test comes in handy, because at an early age it will tell you that this is what you are best suited for, and the child is able to pursue a career and the chances of success increase manifold. So I think now you would have got a fairly good idea of what are the various fields in which psychometric assessment is used. If we have to look at the types of tests, then some of them are individual tests which are done on a one-to-one basis. So I would be sitting with the child one at a time and I would be administering the test. Most of them are a little time consuming. They can take an hour or more. And some of them are ones which can be conducted in a group setting. So typically industries, recruiters, or like I mentioned, the military, army, those are the settings where they prefer to have group tests, where you can test a number of candidates at the same time. So broadly speaking, the most commonly used psychometric tests are the ones that measure intelligence, personality, and aptitude. So if you have any kind of questions or doubts, you can definitely put them in the comment box or write to us at AVAHAN in IPH, and we will also try to address all these queries in our further videos. Thank you.